I'm going to be fully transparent with you all. I have been pretty heavily struggling with burnout for the last 2 to 3 months, specifically in regards to my crochet business and just crocheting in general. And it really has come at a terrible time because I'm supposed to be market prepping right now, and I just have like almost no desire to crochet, which is a totally new experience for me because ever since I learned to crochet, that's all I've ever wanted to do. However, these last 2 to 3 months have been a real struggle for me, and I don't know what exactly is causing it. I think it's due to a multitude of different things, but in that regard, I just wanted to take the time today to talk about crochet burnout since I am currently experiencing this myself. I figured there are probably some other crocheters out there that may potentially be feeling the same, especially when we're coming up on market prepping. I mean, crocheting every single day for hours a day can really just burn you out, and I just know how you feel. I'm currently going through the same thing. If you currently are going through crochet burnout, let me know in the comments below and we can kind of bond over that. But today I wanted to talk about what can potentially cause burnout, more specifically related to crochet, different ways that we can get out of this season of crochet burnout. I'm currently doing a lot of these things to try and hopefully get myself out of this burnout stage in my crochet journey at the moment. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about all things burnout. So first, let's talk about what exactly is crochet burnout. Now, you may have heard of the term burnout before, which was actually a term coined in the 1970s by a psychologist named Herbert Freudenberger, which hopefully I said that correctly. This term was initially used to describe mainly individuals in the medical profession that were facing high levels of stress. However, now today we use this term kind of interchangeably with many different professions and even hobbies like crocheting. So you might be wondering how this applies to crocheting. Yes, crochet burnout is a very real thing that a lot of crocheters experience, and it usually is due to the stress of either crocheting or running a crochet business. For example, that's kind of where my burnout has been stemming from. But really, if you experience stress in any hobby, that can potentially lead to burnout. Like I mentioned, crocheting for hours a day, if you're a hobbyist crocheter, can very easily lead to burnout just because it can take a toll on your body physically, but also mentally. If you're doing the same thing every single day, it can be a lot and you can easily get overwhelmed. So that is always something you need to consider when you're picking up crocheting as a hobby. So what can potentially cause crochet burnout? Now, first of all, if crocheting is causing you so much stress that you are becoming burned out, you seriously need to take a step back and reflect on the possible reasons that you may be becoming burned out from crocheting, whether that's a business or if you're just a hobbyist crocheter. There are a few things that could potentially be causing you to be burned out. I thought of 5 different reasons, mainly pertaining to me, but I think it's also common with other crocheters, especially those who are running businesses. So the first thing that could potentially be burning you out is having unrealistic goals or expectations for yourself, and that could be in your business. Maybe you are committing to too many projects to crochet for people and selling them at craft shows. Maybe you sign up for too many craft shows. You do one craft show a month, but realistically you can only maybe do a craft show every other month. In terms of hobbyist crocheters, maybe you have people just all over asking you to crochet things and you're just nonstop crocheting, and you set the expectation for yourself to crochet for all of your friends and family, and it's just too much. The next cause could be that you're overcommitting yourself so much so that you are neglecting not only your needs, but your family's needs as well. Now, you may be a single crocheter, but if you have a family and it's getting to the point where you're neglecting their needs because you are just so involved with your crocheting, that can be a pretty big trigger for burning you out. I know from experience, there were days that I was just crocheting nonstop all day to the point where I was neglecting my household needs, which, I mean, let's be honest, we've all been there. But that can really burn you out because you have all of these things in the back of your mind that you know you need to get done, but you're just so focused on crocheting that you don't catch up on all of your chores or your family duties, or maybe you're missing out on different things because you're so invested in what you're doing in your crocheting. That can really cause you to be overwhelmed very easily and thus burned out. The next reason is that you could be feeling constantly overworked or even under challenged. Speaking from experience, when I am not challenging myself, I really have zero to no motivation to do things, which is why sometimes prepping for markets is not my favorite thing to do because I don't really feel challenged when I'm crocheting the same thing over and over and over again. If you do, by all means, that's great. But for me, I like to mix it up and I want to do new projects, and crocheting the same thing a million times can very easily make me feel overworked and under challenged. And that was just an example, by the way. There are other ways that you could potentially be feeling overworked or under challenged in your crocheting. The next reason that you could be becoming burnt out is by constantly having to meet deadlines or learning new things. If you have a ton of deadlines that you have to meet, this can really put a lot of pressure on you and it just makes you feel more overwhelmed. I know for me, when I have to meet a bunch of deadlines, I just get so overwhelmed to the point where I just start shutting down, and thus I do not want to complete those tasks because I know that I'm going to be working constantly to meet those deadlines, and it just is too overwhelming for me. Also, on the other side, learning new things can also stress you out to the point where you're feeling burned out. I think it's an important rule just to do everything in moderation. You just really need to self-reflect and know what you can handle in that moment. And the last reason that I could think of that could potentially be causing your crochet burnout is not having a good work-life balance. So for example, if you're crocheting 10 plus hours a day or working on your crochet business every day, 7 days a week, and not taking breaks, that is going to really cause you to be burnt out. And I'm sure you've heard this from maybe other jobs. Having a good work-life balance is not only good for your physical health, but your mental health as well. If you don't have a good balance between those two things, it can be really detrimental to those things, and really it could really make you resent your job, which if your job is to crochet, then you could really just start to hate the craft, which is, I wouldn't say it's a little extreme that I hate crocheting, but I really did not have a great work-life balance, and I really just started to lose that desire to crochet because I was doing it constantly without taking breaks, and it really just has not been healthy for me. So after considering all of these causes, I think it would be a good time to sit and self-reflect on what you think potentially could be causing your burnout. Now, it could be one of these things. It could be all of them. For me, it's multiple of them that were causing my burnout. So I really think it's important to self-reflect and think on what could be causing it, because once you know the root of the cause, it's so much easier to put a plan in place to hopefully either prevent crochet burnout in the future or hopefully get you out of that season of burnout. Okay, now that we've identified the causes of burnout, let's talk about some of the signs that may indicate that you are currently in a season of crochet burnout. Definitely, if you notice any of these signs, don't worry. That doesn't necessarily mean you are burnt out, but it is just an opportunity for self-reflection and improvement if you notice any of these things. So I felt a lot of these in my experience as a person who's currently in crochet burnout. But the number one thing that indicated to me that I was experiencing burnout was little to self-motivation to crochet and just feeling exhausted all the time. It's almost like in these last 2 to 3 months, it's almost felt like a chore to me to crochet, and I hate that feeling because I love to crochet and I am so passionate about crocheting, especially amigurumi. So to me, when it got to that point where I felt like it was just a chore and I just had no motivation to do it, I knew that that was the beginning stages of my burnout. Leading into that next thing, talked about a little bit about how it can feel like a chore, which can also lead to procrastination. If you notice that you're procrastinating tasks, that is a big sign that you may be experiencing burnout. Now, some people are just natural procrastinators, myself included. I am horrible at procrastinating, especially when there's things that I see as a chore or something that I don't necessarily want to do. But it gets so much worse when I feel like I'm burnt out. I procrastinate even more or just don't even complete tasks altogether. You may also notice a reduced performance or quality of work. I didn't necessarily notice this in my experience of burnout. However, I have at times found myself cutting corners, which can often lead to decreased quality in your work. If you're someone that's crocheting on a more professional basis, you definitely do not want that, especially if you're selling your pieces. And, if you're just crocheting as a hobbyist and you notice that you're making a lot of mistakes in your pieces and projects, that can be very dissatisfying and even perpetuate the burnout cycle. You may also notice that you're distancing yourself from the craft or the crochet community, which I know I have noticed this for myself. I have not been as involved with things in the community in regards to social media and interacting with different people in the community. That can really be unhealthy just because really as people we're meant to grow and have community. And if you're doing a lot of your crocheting by yourself, that's totally fine. But especially if you're someone who is having a crochet business, it is so important to build community and connections within the crochet community. And if you find yourself distancing yourself from that and just having little motivation to connect with people, that can be a huge red flag that you're experiencing burnout. The last sign that I personally noticed was feeling overwhelmed even with simple tasks. These simple tasks could be anything from just crocheting a project to doing small administrative tasks behind the scenes. I know for me, I've been procrastinating doing my financial books, which really, it can be a big deal, but also it's really not. I just overcomplicate things sometimes. But even just the simple things can really stress you out. I've noticed this in my own experience, just even with just little things. It's just another way that might make you realize you're currently in a season of burnout. But I do want to take a moment to just emphasize if you are experiencing any of these signs, but you're also seeing it affected in other areas of your life. For example, if you're struggling with any negative thoughts, on top of experiencing these signs and also noticing it just affect your general life, you may be dealing with more than just burnout. And I cannot stress this enough. If you're feeling down or have any negative thoughts, definitely reach out to a medical professional because mental health is just so important. I would not want you to keep dealing with those feelings and emotions all on your own. Really, your mental health is incredibly important. So there are many ways that you can overcome and prevent crochet burnout. There is hope. You will not be stuck in this season for an eternity. Everyone's time frame in terms of feeling burnt out is different, but if you take the steps to improve and better yourself, there is hope to get out of this burnout stage. So here's some ways that have currently worked for me in terms of hopefully pulling myself out of this burnout. There are some other ways I'm sure out there, or if you've ever experienced burnout, feel free to share in the comments below what's worked for you. But some of the ways that I have found that have really helped me feel better about myself and not so overwhelmed with my crochet business and just crocheting in general. And starting with the first one, which is probably the most important out of this whole list, is to take a break. So we've already kind of talked about how crocheting for hours on end can be really detrimental to both your physical and mental health. Seriously, I cannot stress this enough. It can take a huge toll on your hands, wrists, fingers, as well even your mental well-being. It is really essential to take breaks, especially if you start to notice that you are experiencing pain or you're feeling overworked. Just put your crochet hook and your yarn aside and take a break. If you're someone like me who sometimes has a hard time putting things down, maybe put your yarn and crochet hook in an area where you're not going to just pick it up, because We all experience that temptation, I'm sure. You can take a break from just a few hours to days or even weeks or months. However long you need to take that break until you start to feel like you are not so overwhelmed or stressed out by crocheting. Okay, so let's say you took a break from crocheting and you feel like you're ready to jump back in. I would definitely recommend trying quick and easy crochet projects. I am someone who, and I think most people probably feel the same way, who like to feel instantly gratified. And if you're picking up a quick project like an amigurumi project or washcloths, anything that is something you are interested in that could be a quick and easy project, especially those no-sew patterns are always fun to pick up. It can definitely be a mood boost and instantly lift your spirits, and it can just help give you a sense of fulfillment. Other crochet projects that may help you get out of your burnout stage is crocheting a meaningful project with a purpose. This could be a thoughtful gift for a loved one, or maybe a home decor item for your house, or even a kitchen item. You could also crochet items for a charity or give them away and donate. There are so many different meaningful projects that you could potentially pick to crochet and help you get out of that burnout stage. But I know when I am feeling motivated to create a crochet project, and if it has a purpose behind it, it is incredibly motivating to me to actually complete that project, and it has helped bring joy and get out of that stage where I'm just feeling so overwhelmed and stressed out. Also, in line with taking a break, maybe it's time to pick up another hobby while you are taking your break. For me, I picked up reading. I love to read. And when I'm feeling burnt out, I just set my crochet hook aside and pick up my Kindle and read a book or listen to an audiobook. But having more than one hobby can help you recharge and refresh. And usually when I am reading, it transports me into another world and it makes me just feel happy, and I can forget about my own life for a little bit. And then usually once I'm feeling a little refreshed, I feel so much better picking back up my crochet hook and my yarn. Next, this is especially important for those of you who have a crochet business or are selling your creations, but definitely make sure to set realistic expectations and goals for yourself. If you are setting goals and expectations that are unreachable or impossible to reach, then you're really just not setting yourself up for success, and it's so much more likely for you to be burned out. If you've ever heard the term SMART goals, I would definitely look into that, because writing SMART goals for yourself is a great exercise for setting realistic goals for yourself. I did this at the beginning of the year. I set some SMART goals for myself. And if you're not familiar with what SMART goals are, it's an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So for example, an example of a goal that is not a SMART goal would be, I want to improve my crochet and learn new techniques. If we're going to turn this into a SMART goal, you may have a goal that sounds like this: complete an online course that teaches new crochet stitches and techniques within 3 months. So as you can see with these two different ways that we've written out these goals, our SMART goal is something that is measurable. We want to complete this goal within 3 months. It is more specific, so we know exactly what we want to accomplish. It's relevant to our craft. We want to learn new things within our craft. It's timely. We're not trying to accomplish this goal within a day, because that's not super realistic. And it's also an attainable goal. Goal isn't incredibly outlandish and impossible to attain. You can very easily obtain this goal in 3 months. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already, sitting down and writing out some SMART goals for yourself, especially if you're running a crochet business. It's a great exercise for just grounding yourself in terms of what you want to accomplish and different time frames of what you want to accomplish these things. I just highly recommend writing out some goals, especially at the beginning of each year or at the beginning of the season. You know, your goals can change throughout the year, and that's totally fine. You may not always accomplish all of your goals, and that's also fine. but writing out some realistic goals and expectations is super important for preventing burnout. And especially if you're already feeling burnt out and you don't have goals for yourself, maybe it's a good time now to start to do that. Next, I would recommend crocheting a project that you have potentially crocheted in the past or left you happy after you finish crocheting it. There is nothing wrong with crocheting a project that you know has given you satisfaction in the past. You already know that that project is going to make you happy, so why not crochet it again? Because it could reignite your passion for crochet. This next way is one of the most difficult ways for me to prevent crochet burnout. I have such a hard time with telling people no. So I highly recommend that you learn to say the word no. I get it. I am a people pleaser by nature. I always want to make people happy and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I have a really hard time telling people no, especially when I have people asking me to crochet them things. I don't want to disappoint them and I want to make them happy. But sometimes it comes at a point in my life when it's really not conducive for me. I have just had to learn how to say no to people. Maybe the no is just for now and it might be a yes later, but saying yes to everything can seriously wear you down. Talking from someone who's experienced this in the past, I definitely recommend before jumping into any new opportunity, taking some time to self-reflect and really think about if this project or maybe you have a brand reach out to you. There are so many different things that could potentially happen along the way, but just take some time to self-reflect and really think about if this opportunity is right for you. Maybe it's just a bad time, or it could just not be your area of expertise. There are so many reasons that could lead you to saying no, but if you find any reasons why this opportunity would not be good for you, then there is no issue with saying no. And if that person gets upset, maybe they're not the right customer or partnership that you should be going into anyway. This next one I also personally struggle with. It is so important to limit your time on social media, which may be contradictory to what you've heard. If you have a crochet business, you should be posting every day or multiple times a day. You need to be at least posting a video every week. You need to send an email every week. It can be a lot. And I have experienced this where I just really despise getting on social media some weeks, and I just have powered through some weeks because I'm like, I have to do this. And then I get caught up on my social media and I end up scrolling for hours on end, which we often refer to as doom scrolling. And then I get really mad at myself because I've been on social media all day and I haven't been doing the other tasks that I'm supposed to do. And it just becomes this endless cycle, and I have just come to resent social media sometimes. I've come really close to just deleting my social media. I'm not gonna lie, I've been there a few times and I've never actually pulled the trigger, but there have been many times where I've just had enough and I can't do it anymore. But I think it is important to have social media presence, especially if you are running a crochet business, but don't let it get to the point where it's totally overwhelming you and stressing you out and taking away from focusing on other areas of your business. I think what has really helped me with social media is pre-planning things in advance. So instead of just thinking of posts on the fly or just posting at random, I have just created a social media schedule where I every month create a list of the things that I want to post on each day of that month. Obviously things come up and things happen, but at least this gives me an idea of what I want to do on social media that month, so I'm not every day trying to think of new ideas and spending hours on end creating posts for my social media account. But honestly, there's really nothing wrong with also taking a break from social media, which I have done before. I've taken week-long or more breaks, and I feel so much more refreshed when I come back to posting on social media. Honestly, if you've never taken a break from social media, I highly recommend, because you will not realize how much time you have for other things, and maybe take advantage of that time to plan for things in the future. And really, it just makes you feel so much freer to focus on the things that you love, like crocheting. For my last suggestion, I recommend finding or building a community, especially with like-minded crocheters. It is so important to have a community that you can rely on, especially if you are currently feeling burnt out. It is a great thing to reach out to those that you trust and confide in, just to vent and have people to support you when you're in a season of burnout. Personally, I don't know many people in my life that crochet, so I've often found community through online communities such as different online platforms, seminars I've attended, and even retreats. There are a few ways that you can find community within the crochet community. And if you're struggling to find that perfect community for you and you feel like you're in a good place to create your own, definitely go for it. You could do that through Facebook groups or even organize an event in your town or a get together with other people. But finding a community that is supportive and can also help mentor you is incredibly important to help overcome and prevent burnout in the future. I hope for your sake that you never experience burnout like I am currently experiencing. But if you do, there is hope, and I hope that all of these tips and a little background on crochet burnout will help you prevent and overcome it in the future. And we all experience burnout on some level. It is just a part of human life. Don't stress yourself out if you're currently experiencing it. There are ways to help. And if you think of any other ways, or if you're currently experiencing or have experienced burnout, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And any tips that you have. I think it's always great to share our experiences with others. It's super important for growth and learning. And I just love hearing your thoughts about what you guys are currently experiencing. And yeah, I just love hearing from you all. But I hope that you enjoyed this video and it was super helpful. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you all have a happy and healthy day crocheting. And definitely don't forget to take breaks. I can't mention that enough. As always, everyone, happy crocheting. Bye.